Good morning, Gumshoe Crew. It's Dathan Detekktiv. This is the first part in the Illustrated Investigation series, where I will be comparing and contrasting my art growth, usually as a year of progress. All four of the pieces that I will show you today will come from April 2024 and April 2025, and I will going to note the weaknesses of the past and the respect of the present skill level. Generally speaking, I draw my pieces for the subreddit known as r/draw4me, where an individual will post an original character and it is your job to reinterpret, redraw, or reimagine them. The first piece is from a long defunct account from a user called ComingDownWithMe, and their OC is seen on the right. However, my interpretation is on the left, as I enjoyed making her pose, and my take on her outfit was a lot more inspired than just following it one to one. However, there are three main critiques I have with the piece. The first is how unrealistic her shadows are. When you compare them to, say, any other normal reference, you would notice that the shadows would cast along and down her body. However, this is not at all the case. In my picture, she is much less realistic in how her shadows function, especially in the creases and in the inclusion shadows of her outfit. Second, the size of the canvas is only 320 by 440 pixels. I'm going to compare this to a blacked out version of the modern image. Look at how massive the canvas is compared to the ones that I used to draw in. And third, her arm is broken. Look at this. This is crazy. Not only is her arm broken, but the bag on her arm wouldn't even bend in like that, as it's almost like it's a Mobius strip and it's warped inside and turned onto itself. If anything, the bag would either be on her hip or across her chest in order for it to even look like that. The second piece of April 2024, though, was a much better effort. Ghost was far more challenging as a piece, as I did my best to integrate a full body version of her and maintain the outfit. I actually enjoyed making the background as well, since she seemed to fit a very gothic world based on her model. Like before, the canvas size was extremely tiny, being the exact same 320 by 440. Colors are washed out. The lighting would not be like this, as it's nighttime and it's a more atmospheric piece. The moon would be casting a shadow onto her front, and there is a random shadow on the bottom of the screen that really doesn't fit with the rest of the piece. Each of the pieces of 2025 fixes a core issue with one of the versions from the year past. Treasure explores how an outfit actually creases and moves alongside a character's body. Even the light source of a stoplight is much more realistic, as I use a reference to actually draw her into frame properly, making her seem much more in place and a 3D version of herself. Especially compared to Ghost, who is a flat character on a flat background with no lighting, despite there being atmospheric and rim lighting from what should have been the moon. Similarly with The Dealer, by U/Superb Guidance 4778, fixes the issue of prop design compared to ComingDownWithMe's post. Not only does the character's prop seem much more in place, as he's holding the dice and the cane in a much more believable way, but they all function properly, as they're not warping or distending in terms of space, and they're properly proportioned given the person's body. Moreover, the dealer is actually approximately equal in terms of how well the props are in terms of Ghost, who has her pistol, but when you compare the backgrounds, it's night and day. The props don't blend into the background like in the case with her pistol, and you get to see how those things function in terms of how he's using them. In his left hand, he's holding the dice, and in the right hand, he's putting the cane down, just like how Ghost should be holding the gun in her left hand and should realistically be doing something with her right rather than just, propping it up in space. However, the most important change that I made later on, which you'll be able to see as I post more of these videos, was the choice to standardize my canvas size to 864 by 1117 pixels. That difference allowed me to be much more granular in how I chose to make my pieces and fill them with much more detail while not missing out on key components that would make the piece live. I look forward to showing more as time goes on, and I look forward to demonstrating how those skills have grown. Now, something that I enjoy is hiding Easter eggs inside of each one of my pictures. So, Gumshoe Crew, I ask you guys to put on your detective caps and tell me how many Easter eggs you can find in the pieces that I posted. Now, for one of them, which is the dealer, that's actually California Girls, but it was really hard to integrate that well. I apologize, but everything else is up to you to find. Now, the comment of the day comes by Omega Minoseer, who says, I want to claim that $10. I bet you don't last a week, detective. Now, of course, I'm going to keep pushing as long as I can, and just for you, buddy, I'm going to make sure I upload about, extra videos some weeks, just to stick it to you in particular. Anyway, this is Dathan Detekktiv, and I look forward to showing you all there is and more. Good luck, everybody.